of wrestling was going to end so that I needed to do something sustainable. My mom had been a vegetarian for 20 plus years, and so she kind of eventually talked me into it, to do an experiment. I enjoyed it so much, felt so good, lost a ton of weight, that I just decided to continue, went to chiropractic school. When I finished, I went and did a 6-month kind of like preceptorship, internship at this place in California called True North Health Center. It's about a mile away from the McDougall Center. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that. Joel Furman did his residency or his training there for his fasting. And it's an inpatient center with about 40 beds, and they literally lock people up and just feed them fruits and vegetables. That's a pretty powerful intervention when you can actually lock someone up. Everyone pretty much gets better. And it just has motivated me to help share and learn as much as I can about this. And so today, I'm going to talk to you a little about that. I was also asked to speak about supplements, because there are people that have questions about that, and how that interplays with healthy eating or plant-based nutrition. So, supplement use, this is just over the past about 40 years, has gone up. People under 50 and people over 50. The number one reason people use supplements is to improve overall health or to maintain their health. We can also see that they use it for bone health, heart problems, to boost immunity, mental health, for energy. And the most common type of supplement is multivitamin, multi-mineral. And then on the right-hand side, it says why people use it, and the number one reason is to improve overall health. Calcium being number 2, and that's for bone health. Now, might be kind of hard to see. This survey of all the different types of supplements and the reasons people use them, there's a big discrepancy between the actual evidence of efficacy of the supplements and the reasons why people are using them. About 90% of the reasons people are using the said supplement, there's little evidence that that actually works for what they're taking it for. And we'll go over that. So the dream is that we have something magical in a bottle. That's not necessarily always a reality. Some supplement fallacies: it can't hurt and it might help. I actually call supplements unregulated drugs because there is very few or little government regulation. And there's a lot of problems with safety, purity, and potency. So we'll kind of go over some ways that you can kind of cross-reference the supplements that you're on to make sure you're getting quality supplements and how to use them safely. You can't win if you don't play. Some people do supplement roulette. They're not feeling great, so they just start taking everything. Again, this can, not just the opportunity cost of your wallet, but you may be avoiding other interventions that could be more powerful, more beneficial. And then, well, it's an antioxidant, it can't hurt, or it kills cancer cells, so it might be well for me. These arguments have been used to kind of justify the reasons that people are taking it. That doesn't always apply to every single situation. And then people with an actual health problem, a diagnosis, you fit into a completely different category when you're trying to treat a disease than a healthy person trying to maintain their health. So what works for someone that has an alteration in their health may not necessarily, or could be harmful for someone that is completely healthy. So there's a lot of crossover, and you can't always apply yourself to each demographic. So whenever you choose supplements, you want to make sure they have one of those 2 markers on it. Now if you go to, and I have done this, gone to like Natural Grocers or Whole Foods or Safeway, about 80% don't have these seals. And so these are third-party testers, and so they verify what is actually in the bottle is in the bottle. And they don't have any extra, they don't have any less, they don't have any additives, there's no stuff that could be harmful to your health. And there's heavy metals, there are environmental pollutants, toxicants, lots of stuff in supplements that are very harmful. So if they don't have that, for starts, don't use the supplement. Consumer Lab, which is this one right here, you can go on to consumerlab.com. It's $30 a year. If you're really interested in helping people with nutrition or your healthcare provider, I recommend signing up so you can cross-reference all supplements. And they literally break it down by cost, so cost per dose. And they let you know if what's in the supplement is actually in the supplement or there's too much. This is kind of hard to see, but like they had most popular reviews. And so multivitamins put the test at the top. Defects found in nearly 40%. Next one, fish oil, krill, best fish oil. Many are high quality, but pitfalls exist. What's really in your cocoa and dark chocolate? 33% of curcumin turmeric supplements fail the test. So it's very prevalent that, I mean, you're almost better to guess that nothing's in what they say is actually in the bottle than to assume what they have on the label is actually in there. So basic no-nos within your supplement regimen. Retinol, this is vitamin A, not preformed vitamin A. Greater than 2,000 IU, that's a big no-no. Synthetic beta-carotene, you want to avoid that one. For plant-based eaters, if you have a very high vegetable intake in your diet, excess manganese, the upper limit's 11 milligrams. Most people's diets will get there. If your supplement has it too, then you're going to be pushed over the limit. And so that's one that I see all the time. Excess beta-carotene, over 15,000 IU. Excess alpha tocopherol, so that's vitamin E. That actually depletes your other types of vitamin E in your body. And it can take several years for you to actually regain status of other types of vitamin E. Another reason why excess beta-carotene is harmful is because it takes up all the receptor sites for all the other carotenoids. There's more than just beta, there's alpha, there's delta, I mean, just like the alphabet. And you miss out on that if you're just overloading the receptors with one kind. Substances with no human data, graviola, and I have a question mark for DHA, which we might talk about a little bit if we have time. Supplements to avoid, we'll move through this one pretty quick, but it does fall under, so I just want to make sure all our bases are covered. Steroids and steroid enhancers, andro and andro precursors, ephedra, synephrine compounds, valerian, kava kava, these are actually some common herbs and they can have adverse effects, especially when combined with alcohol. There's been reports of liver toxicity with kava kava. It's banned in other countries, but not here, so again, our regulations are not as strict. St. John's wort, this can be a beneficial supplement in some cases, but does interfere with a lot of medications, so you want to communicate this with your healthcare provider. And then a couple of others at the bottom that are pretty rare. Energy drinks, again, these are highly unregulated, so the amount of caffeine is not always what they say is in there. Sometimes it's a lot higher. And they put really high dosages of this other stuff in there, and there's no data on basically how that stuff all combines. And whenever you stack supplements, there's always more potential for adverse effects and health problems. And people do it with alcohol too. That's been widely written about and be very hazardous for the heart, for the liver. Again, it might be redundant and you might already know this, but just covering it. So they don't have to demonstrate efficacy or safety, so please do your homework before using them. Only high quality products with USP certification labels should be used, or it's been verified in a consumer lab. Combining and stacking increases potential for unsafe side effects. And again, energy drinks aren't regulated, so really be careful with them or don't use them at all. My position statement on all supplements is that I do not recommend the general and or random use of any supplement, just because of what we have gone over. Supplements, not any informed consent. So all supplements have some risks. They have effects. We see them studied within the literature, and you read about it in the headlines. They're doing something. So you shouldn't just be, self-administering and basically playing chemical soup. Supplements not a clear and established need that is established in the context of a professional evaluation from a competent health professional. All treatment is predicated on a proper diagnosis. So again, I like to use supplements in the treatment of disease. We'll talk about supplements for healthy people and how those can be used. But that's a really big one. If you have a healthcare problem, you're actually wanting to use supplements, you should communicate that with your healthcare provider, and you should be looking at the evidence of efficacy, drug interactions with that type of supplement. Supplementation does not include the appropriate and continuing professional monitoring with a competent healthcare professional. Again, a lot of people just go on a supplement and they're on it forever. If you think about iron deficiency anemia, they're on iron until they're sufficient and then they come off of it. So you're at a higher dose until you get below abnormal. Vitamin D is one that commonly is like that, so you're on it for a short duration. Some drugs follow this very similar model, and so you don't want to ever just kind of go on something and stay on it forever, because you can definitely create imbalances. Any supplement is still through a multi-level marketing company. or from the healthcare professional recommending them. Multi-level marketing, again, there's a huge conflict of interest. They're usually pushing a product that has not been third-party tested for all the reasons that should be tested. If your healthcare professional is recommending that you take a supplement and they're profiteering off of that, that's a big conflict of interest. So they should recommend that you get it from a health food store, and they should also be cross-referencing or guiding you in getting a supplement that is, again, proven to have what it is in it. A lot of people's, and I know healthcare providers around town, what they have on their shelf, if you go to Consumer Lab, it's laughable. And so you need to do your homework. It's unfortunate how little nutritional education is actually in medical school or even chiropractic school on the majority. You'll have to go kind of above and beyond to find this stuff out on your own, which is unfortunate because you put your trust in someone else. Rule number 1, prevent what's going to kill you. We're using evidence to make our decisions because we have really nothing else to go by. So we want good data, so that means randomized controlled trials, or prospective epidemiology, so studies that look forward in time on basically how people do with a certain thing instead of looking back in time, because that's always not as good. And studies that fit your demographic. If you have a healthcare problem, you want to look at data that is going to fit who you are and people treated like you, or if you're healthy, you want to look at what it does for healthy people. So essential supplements, I call this the first tier. You want to avoid deficiency, rule number 1, because if you don't get any vitamin C and you get scurvy, that'll kill you. It's pretty rare that you wouldn't get any vitamin C, especially on a diet like this, but that could be really disastrous. So back to rule number 1, prevent what's going to kill you. You want to make sure that your bases are covered. So how do you avoid deficiency? Well, first off, we know specific diet styles have deficiencies in nutrients. This is just what's been studied in the literature, and I don't like the term vegan or vegetarian because it only tells people what you don't eat. It doesn't tell people what you do eat. Healthy diet should tell you what to eat. So you may not eat any meat or dairy or eggs, but you only eat Coca-Cola and white bread. I mean, the alcoholics are vegetarians. It's all they do is they drink alcohol. We know it's really bad. We know it creates a lot of problems. So we need to be careful with how we interpret the data. But there are some limitations within what we see. So if you are a vegetarian or a vegan, you know you're not taking in any animal products. B12 is found in animal products. So you need to know that you're either getting it from a supplement or a fortified food. Otherwise, you could potentially run into problems. If you have a conundrum with not wanting to do any supplements, because there are some people that are like that, and that's totally fine, you should at least get tested to make sure that you're not dipping below. Otherwise, you should do something about it because it could greatly affect your health. Now, if you want to go on to Google and type in B12 deficiency and just hit images, that should scare you into supplementing yourself. Another one is vitamin D. There's very low intakes unless you're eating some mushrooms, and then there's conversion rates and all that stuff. 80% of Arizonans are low or deficient in vitamin D. It's actually the same in Texas. People just leave their house, they get in their car, they go into work, and so they don't get actually that much sun. And people are afraid of the sun, so they lather up with sunscreen and stuff. That's another one that you need to be monitoring your intake or your levels. It's part of general health. So, how do you do this yourself if you're not going to go to a healthcare practitioner or can't find a healthcare practitioner? Well, you can go to that website, or you can just Google dietary reference intakes. You can then download what's called the chronometer, and you can plug in what you eat. Now, you don't need to do it every single day. The studies show basically you kind of eat the same meals over and over and over again, usually around 12 to 14. So if you just kind of let's just say, do a 2-week snapshot, and then kind of like put all the average together and kind of look at what you do each day, and you find that you're low on a couple certain nutrients, you can then Google foods high in and start including that stuff more, plug it into your software, and that's the best way to bring up the levels or avoid deficiency. So literally, if you're on top of your nutrition, you want to use that software. It's developed by these people who are incredibly anal retentive. We call them cronies, so CRON, stands for calorie restriction, optimal nutrition. They're trying to get the most nutrients and the limited amount of calories as possible so that they can hopefully improve their maximal lifespan or stave off disease. And so they are literally trying to be as lean as possible without being underweight. They micromanage and weigh all their food. It's ridiculous. But they're being very scientific about it, and they care about it. So they develop the software. It's free, and then you can use it and get a lot of the same benefits. Biochemical individuality. There are some people who require extra folate because of a certain genetic sequence that's different within their body. There are some people who require extra riboflavin for detoxification through their livers through a different pathway. You may know that this is you. You may not know that this is you. Again, also how they figure out the RDAs, it's to meet like 2 standard deviations away from the mean. So it covers 95% of the population. So statistically, about 1 in 20 people will actually have an abnormal increased need for a certain nutrient. You really don't need to pay attention or worry about any of that. If you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and you plug that stuff in to the chronometer, you'll see that, holy cow, I'm off the charts on a lot of stuff. And you can't overdose, for the most part, on overeating too much good food, like you can hurt yourself with supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how that's your insurance, is you have to eat well. And if you have to supplement your diet, that means your diet has something wrong with it. And we know that the diet, there's an orchestra of events that occur when we actually eat foods, because there's all these interplay between all these different nutrients and compounds that we don't necessarily get when we just give one thing. So you want to go to like your big guns, the symphony, and try to get it from food, and that's your slop factor. You want to balance your overdose if you are supplementing. I actually do recommend Joel Fuhrman's supplements. He follows all this similar data. So the ratio of zinc to copper in a lot of multivitamins, there's like 50 milligrams of zinc and like 1 milligram of copper. That'll actually create a copper deficiency over time, and that can lead to problems like high cholesterol and neurologic problems. It's really hard to do if you plug in the data with food. You basically have to eat like a ton of high zinc foods and no copper foods, which no one really does that. But you'd see that if you plug in your numbers. If you're supplementing megadose B vitamins, you're going to create big time imbalances. You can see neurologic side effects with B6 in like 4 weeks with high dose. So there's a lot of risk with that. But if you plug in your numbers and you look at your data, you won't see those intakes at all. It's really hard to do with food. And then calcium versus some other minerals inhibiting absorption. With supplementation, you kind of start running that risk. With food, you don't have it nearly as much. And we've also seen that with extra calcium supplementation in some populations in the Nurses' Health Study, it increased the risk of cardiovascular events. Mm-hmm. So it's not always no risk at all. Vitamin A, we kind of went over basic no-nos at the front. Manganese, we're kind of going back there again, and you can look at your intakes. Iron and cardiovascular disease, that's been studied more. It goes pro-oxidant if you get too much iron. That's why a lot of multivitamins you'll find to say no iron in them because of that data. And then alpha tocopherol, again, it depletes your gamma tocopherol, and so over time you get deficient on important vitamin E substrate. And then pharmacologic supplements for specific Ds and risk factors. This is an example. Again, if you're healthy, you play by different rules than someone who has disease. So if you actually have a bone health problem, you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, so low DEXA, there are some certain things that you can do that's been studied to help improve that. That would not be a good idea if you were healthy. We don't know how that would play out. If your lipids are off, there's some stuff that we know that would be beneficial. If they're not, we don't. The side effects might not be worth whatever you're trying to gain. So that's just an example. If you are in a different category, you play by different rules. And so you can discuss that with your healthcare provider, whoever's working with you on that. My tier 2 is good diet and pill dietary supplements. There are a small number of specific nutrients with safety and efficacy from prospective epidemiology that have been really well controlled, that have been beneficial on human health. And this is actually for healthy people, so you guys can pay attention right here. And you can get all this stuff from food. I would actually prefer that you got it from food because when you put stuff into a pill, it can oxidize. Again, there's all the problems with finding a good supplement. It's more cost effective actually just to buy the food and not have to, worry about, the other stuff that we've talked about. So there's less risk. So I can go through them, but I won't use the actual technical names. But make sure you're eating brassica vegetables, so broccoli, cauliflower. This stuff's really good for you. Chard. I'm blanking, but what's the cabbage is a really good one. Brussels sprouts. Garlic, citrus, red wine, small amounts. Green vegetables, tomatoes, lycopene's been shown to be immensely beneficial for people's health. The compounds in green tea, and then onions, apples, are all really good for you. All come from plants. So the bottom line, don't be malnourished. If you guys are eating Nutritarian style, it's very unlikely you're going to be malnourished. But you do have to watch out for vitamin B12 and your vitamin D. Plug in your numbers and see what you're coming up low on. Don't count on pills and don't kill yourself with them. Seriously, they have a lot of risk. Like certain studies on, and we were talking about the synthetic beta carotene, they actually had to stop that trial because it was so hazardous. They're killing one in every 100 people because of it. That doesn't really get reported. Those people happen to be smokers, and there are a lot of mechanisms into why, but it's serious. You don't want that. And then participate in a low calorie density, high nutrient density diet. That's the best way to make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need, and that's your supplementation. That's your good diet in a pill. And then consult. Again, these things don't have, they're not devoid of risk. Thank you. And I'll do
Questions?
I'm going to talk too fast.